My name is Don Evans. I'm the founding executive director of the Chicago Literary Hall of Fame. There are many of you in the audience tonight who I do know and many who I do not. Um, Mike and Robert, this is their uh, brainchild. Mike came to me. We were working on our fundraiser back in December. We had a fundraiser on December 10th, which was um, an auction, silent auction, and then we had a live event. And 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 Mike emails me and he says, "Oh yeah, I'm going to help you with that. But hey, wait, I got another idea." And so the first opportunity we had to do it was tonight. And so I want to give special thanks to Mike and Robert because they made this whole thing possible. I will say that the name Absence Makes the Heart Grow Fonder, that's all me. And so you're welcome. And if we have a really fun night tonight and we do a sequel, I've already got a couple names working, but one of them is Gimlet Sheltering. Thumbs up, thumbs down, use your, what are they called? Emoticons, reactions? I'm new to this game.
I don't know.
The Chicago Literary Hall of Fame is in its 11th year now. Last year was one of those big anniversaries, the 10th, that we would have probably celebrated in grand fashion, but of course we couldn't and probably shouldn't have, so we just passed it by. But we're very excited about this year. We're adjusting a little bit to the COVID landscape, hoping that by late in the year we can get back to live programming. But meantime, we're trying to figure out how to better, utilize this. One of the great things about doing a virtual ceremony is that we can invite people from all over, and we do have people from all over. In fact, Rich, who's helping with our tech tonight, is in Lima, Peru tonight. Sandra, who's one of our readers tonight, is in Lansing, Michigan. And so this helps us to expand our horizons. Mike is a wonderful writer. He wrote one of my favorite short story collections, What You Don't Know About Men. And his husband, Robert Charles, is a world-class magician. And both of them are, first of all, they're just amazing people. And those of us who are friends with them all feel fortunate. But they're also two of the most selfless advocates of the cultural community in all of Chicago. And they do things for other people and other organizations like they're getting out of bed. It's just part of their DNA. And we're so grateful to be friends with them and have them be friends with the Hall of Fame. They've done so much to support us and to help us move forward over the years. They're going to be your host tonight. I'm going to disappear after this. The Chicago Literary Hall of Fame has, like I say, events coming up. We have a Chicago Classics reading that is a themed reading on Valentine's Day, Chicago Love Classics. We're going to do another one like that on opening day, Chicago Baseball Classics. You can look at these all on our website, www.chicagoliteraryhof.org. So just go there. You can find our events. We have a very big announcement coming up in a week about a Lifetime Achievement Award recipient. We're going to save that until the time is right. But go to our calendar, look at that. You can go all over our website and find out a lot about the Chicago literary scene and in particular what we're doing. And a toast before I give it to Mike and Robert. I know we haven't made our first drink yet, but some of us have gotten a head start. Let's give a toast to sticking together even when we're apart. And here's a fun evening tonight.
Yes. Tonight, literature. We figured it's a literary event, so we would pull out the pipes, put on our ties, put on our sweaters. We've got our books. Oh, look, Responsible Adults by Patricia Ann McNair, a Chicago writer, a new book that's available. Lee Bay, Southern Exposure.
You could turn it the other way.
A relatively new book that's well worth the read.
Always be selling. That's
Always
what I
be
say.
selling, always be selling. Well, we are thrilled that you are joining us for the party tonight. Welcome to Absinthe Makes the Heart Grow Fonder. We hope that you are safe and healthy, and we think we're just going to have some fun tonight. As Don said, for the first part of the evening, we're pretty much going to hear some of the presenters. Ryan Prindle will help us learn how to make a couple of cocktails, a few concoctions. Sandra Seaton will be doing a little bit of a reading from Cyrus Coulter. And Anne Marie Aiken, a dear friend, singer, songwriter, and poet, will be leading us in she'll be singing one song and then at the very end leading us in another tune, which, by the way, in the chat, there's a prompt for you. One of the tunes is, what do we do with a drunken writer? And she's asked you to suggest an answer to that question in the chat, and it may or may not turn up in the song by the end of the evening. First, we want to really sincerely thank the people who got us here tonight. Don Evans, Randy Albers, everybody with the Chicago Literary Hall of Fame, Rich Kono, the tech guru who is making all of this magically work. Rich, it's our understanding Rich invented the internet, so thank you, Rich, for doing that. Jeff Wagner, who's the graphic designer, he did the program book that was emailed to you, and you can follow along in that to learn more about some of the celebrities you'll meet this evening and some of the cocktails we'll drink. And Dmitry Samarov, who did the cover artwork that we've used on some of the promotion too. We've got, I think there's about 60 or so people at the party, real live human beings. We can't name everyone, but later on, we'll, after the presentation in the second half, after everyone comes off mute, we'll open this up and be able to just chat a little bit. We might have a little magic during the party. But just to let you know, some of the people who are here, we've got Eric Sahlstrand and Marinelle Murphy. Marinelle's a poet, a performer, famous bird watcher. We've got James Finn Garner, who's the author of the best-selling Politically Incorrect Bedtime Stories.
And then we have Mike Murray from LA. Looking forward to seeing you again in the future. Hopefully we'll be going to another jazz club. And also Liz and Aiden in Boston. And I've asked Liz to assist me in something magical at the very end of the program, but we'll get to that later.
And Liz and Aiden used to live in Bucktown, so they have Chicago roots. They're from the area. We're also joined this evening by Dr. Sonia Anderson. Dr. Anderson, I'm lifting a glass of champagne for you and remembering a wonderful drink you and I shared in the lobby of the beautiful Palmer House Hotel. We were drinking champagne and you said, wouldn't it be wonderful just to go through life a little bit tipsy? And I think that's what has become my life's pursuit here.
Especially since the pandemic.
Who else have we got in the house? We've got Brooke Bergen, who is a great Chicago poet. Jill and Dave Stewart, part of the Oak Park crowd. Who else have we got, Bob?
We have artist Phil Hartigan and writer Patty Ann McNair.
Yes, exactly. We've got Rajiv and Belamote. Rajiv is a terrific writer and wine connoisseur who tonight is branching out and trying some of the hard stuff. We've got Susie Schultz, who's the executive director of the Museum of Broadcast Communications. Darwin Jones, another terrific writer.
And we have Michael Kaplan,
the filmmaker of a great documentary about Nelson Algren. Who else is in the house? We've got Michelle and David from Elgin, who are drinking a flight of martinis that they call the Love Potion. So they may be off screen for part of the evening. I'm not sure. Who
and
else?
I believe Karen and Paul are joining us as well.
Karen and Paul are here.
River Park, River Forest, one of those parks up there. I can't remember.
And what about our neighbors?
I know our neighbors,
Hunter and
Mr.
Jason?
and Jason, right across the hall.
They are gay, there are gay neighbors, and it's always good to have gay neighbors.
Our favorite neighbors.
Speaking of gay neighbors, there's Scott and Malcolm, who I mentioned. Scott makes a mean side. So there's a whole bunch of people who I've probably forgotten to mention, and a whole bunch of people we would love to meet. So we're thrilled that you're all joining us. Now tonight, this presenters you'll meet include Sandra Seaton, who's an excellent playwright, who will read a bit from the great Chicago writer, Cyrus Coulter. Anne Marie Aiken, as I mentioned, the singer-songwriter, poet, and essayist. And our bartender this evening, our barkeep extraordinaire, is Ryan Prindle. And we met Ryan when he was behind the bar at Band of Bohemia. He's also worked at Mordecai, Billy Sunday. He's done some work for Stephanie Izzard, some other places. And I think, Ryan, you're in McKinley Park. Is that on Chicago's south side there?
Yeah. McKinley Park. My wife and I live right on McKinley Park. It's pretty amazing.
So I have a question for you at the top of the evening here. So absinthe, I always, it's sort of a theme for the evening. We've got a couple of drinks that deal with absinthe. And when I think of absinthe, I always think of, Van Gogh and Oscar Wilde, Toulouse-Lautrec. And I have these images of, I've never had absinthe. You've never had absinthe. We've never had absinthe. And we always think, oh, it's going to drive you crazy. The green devil will make you insane.
One to know, we hope.
Yes. Exactly. So what's the truth about absinthe?
All right. Well, first and foremost, absinthe is legal. Okay, and it does not make you hallucinate. It's incredibly high proof, so they do have to follow certain laws, to be able to sell it in the United States. Now, everybody has seen a bottle like this on the bar. It's called Pernod. Pernod makes a absinthe, and then they make an absinthe style liqueur. The one that I have here, this is an absinthe style liqueur. It's lower in proof. Real absinthe is going to be somewhere around 140 proof, 130, 140 proof. Incredibly strong, but delicious nonetheless.
Very good, very good. So our first cocktail of the evening will be the Tarzan Cocktail that comes to us thanks to a writer with Chicago roots, Edgar Rice Burroughs. And Edgar Rice Burroughs was born in Chicago in 1875, and he lived for a while on the west side of the city and then in Oak Park. His father made a huge fortune as a whiskey producer, and then he got into making batteries that were used in cars and everything. But Burroughs himself, Edgar Rice Burroughs himself, was a failure at almost everything he tried to do until at about 35 years old, he turned to writing. And he started writing fantasy stories and science fiction and stories about a certain character named Tarzan. And by the time Burroughs died, this would have been in 1950, he would have been 75 years old. He was thought to be the writer the American writer who earned the most from Hollywood. So Edgar had sort of a good ending. So Ryan, why don't you remind us what ingredients and type of glassware we're going to need for the ideal Tarzan cocktail, and we'll walk through this, and we'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. Okay, so first and foremost, the Tarzan cocktail is extremely reminiscent of a daiquiri, a proper daiquiri, which is Demerara rum. When you hear the words white rum, that's Demerara rum made from molasses, not sugarcane. That would be a rum agricole. But with the Tarzan cocktail, the first thing that we're going to want to do for the folks that are going to be making this drink with me is we need to get your glass cold. We're going to be serving it in a coupe glass, something like this. I had mine pre-frozen. If you do not, all you have to do is throw a couple ice cubes in there, set it aside while you build your drink. The first thing when it comes to making a cocktail is you want to start with the least expensive items first. That way, if you make a mistake, you could discard, start over. So don't
Good
start
point.
start with your citrus or your sugars. So in this case, it'll be juice from half a lime. But if you are using pre-squeezed lime juice, you would want to do about 3/4 of an ounce. Now in a daiquiri, the build for that is 2 ounces of spirit, 3/4 of an ounce of lime, and 3/4 of an ounce of simple syrup. Shake, strain, you're good to go. In this cocktail, it is only calling for 1 ounce of white rum. If you're like me, feel free to put a little bit more if you want to. But
Ryan was always a generous bartender.
Yes, I got to keep my guests happy. Second thing that we're going to be throwing in here is going to be the Cuantro. Cuantro is a triple stack that is base spirit is cognac. That's why it's so expensive at the store. It's not like your Bull's triple sec. The base spirit is cognac, so it's distilled from white wine grapes. And you'll be putting a teaspoon, or in my case, a bar spoon.
So what's the, do we need a bar spoon or does it really matter?
Oh, yeah. So you can use like a kitchen table spoon. I wouldn't fill it all the way up. In my case, I have actual bar spoons here.
Okay.
When you're doing it, it calls for a teaspoon. A teaspoon is going to be reminiscent to a bar spoon.
Okay. You're a professional.
A professional drinker.
You have all the gadgets.
Next, we'll be putting in a half an ounce of simple syrup. Now, if you were going to be using just granulated white sugar, it's going to call for another bar spoon of sugar. Personally, that's a very old world way of doing things. You're going to get a little bit better of a result if using simple syrup, but either way, it'll still work. So we'll put a half an ounce of simple syrup. Now the simple syrup is incredibly easy to make. Just for future reference, you're just going to put a cup of hot water on the stove. Once it boils, you're going to put a cup of sugar in there, stir it until it dissolves, get it off the heat. Shelf life is a month, so you can keep it in your fridge for a month. It'll be good. And then last but not least, we'll be putting in an ounce of white rum. I'm using Eldorado 3-year. This is a 3-year cask-aged Demerara rum. When you have Demerara rums, like I said, it's made from molasses. It's a little bit sweeter. It's a little bit more palatable. When you have rum agricole, which is this rum's counterpart, it's going to be extremely medicinal. It's an acquired taste. We'll just say that.
All right, now I have to ask you a little question that may seem kind of strange to our viewers, but since you've served me multiple drinks over the years, I noticed that when you use the pourer to pour the shot into the glass, you do sort of a dip like that with it, with your hand. Is that just a gesture that you do, or is that like a bartending finesse move, or what is that?
It's a finesse move. I mean, when I'm making a drink, let's say for instance, I'm pouring into my jigger here, I always go up against, that way when I turn my hand over, it goes straight into the glass or into your tin or your mixing glass. The most embarrassing thing you could do when you're working at a reputable bar is spill all over the counter.
Not so bad here at home.
Yeah, not so bad here at home, but again, my wife has seen me through all the years of bartending, and now she expects me to keep a clean cutting board when I make drinks.
Very good, very good. Is Liz drinking your concoctions tonight?
Oh, she's right behind my computer waiting for this. So.
All right, very good, very good. Hello, Liz.
She says hello. In my case, now, when you are shaking or stirring a drink, people always ask, well, how long do I do it for? That really depends on the ice that you use, okay? Me being the bougie dude that I am, I use just ice, so real cocktail ice. Very long process to make this ice, but it gives you the proper temperature and dilution ratios. When you're shaking a drink, you're adding dilution, you're making it more palatable, and then you're also changing the temperature of the drink. If you're using those little crescent ice cubes that you get out of your out of your freezer. Obviously, you wouldn't want to shake or stir or drink as long. And if you're using that party ice that you get from the grocery store, even less. But in my case, I'll be shaking this a little bit longer.
So
So
where do you get, what's your fancy ice called? Where do you get that?
it's from a company called Just Ice. It was
Just
started,
Ice.
yeah, it was started by a barkeep that used to work at the Violet Hour in Chicago.
Oh, okay.
Left the bar business, started working in the ice business, and now I would say pre-pandemic, 90% of reputable Chicago bars they go through them to get their ice. That's how they're able to, first put up an excellent product. Second, they need to make money too. So when it comes to charging $14, $15 a cocktail, you're going to have a beautiful ice cube in the glass.
All right, so I just want to give a shout out to all of our friends who are watching along at home. You will now be judged on your ice when we come over. If you ever invite us over for another party, we will be checking for the Just Ice receipts.
Yeah, Just Ice. If you live in the Chicagoland area, they're on the south side. They're right over by me. Their shop is in back of the yards over near Pershing and 46th. Yeah, it's owned by one guy. He goes in. I went in today. I haven't been to his place of business. I've always had it delivered to the restaurants that I worked at. I went in and he gave me a whole tour of the shop. It was fantastic.
Wow.
Yeah.
Very good.
All right. So when you get to the point where you've built your ingredients from the least expensive to the most expensive, if you're using a cocktail shaker, you want to make sure that one side kisses the other side, and then you have this gap here. That's going to be for when you try and release your cocktail shaker. Now, if you're using the 3-piece shakers, again, I would just recommend always keeping your thumb over the cap. Now, for the folks tuning in that do not have a cocktail shaker, that's okay. I would build all your ingredients into the glass that you're going to be drinking out of. I would add ice to it, and then you could take, if you don't have a bar spoon, a chopstick works just fine. What you're going to do is you're going to stick the chopstick in the side of the glass. You're just going to stir your drink until it has the dilution that you're looking for and the temperature that you're looking for. And then I would add a little bit more ice afterwards just to keep it extra cold, especially with rum cocktails. They need to be pretty cold.
So can you actually taste the difference between shaken, not stirred, or stirred and
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Oh, wow.
When you're shaking a drink, 99.9% of the time, it's going to have acid in there. Lime, lemon, grapefruit, orange, anything like that. You're going to want to shake that drink. It helps break down the fibers in the acid and make it a little bit more palatable. When you are stirring a cocktail, it's going to be spirit forward, gin martinis, whiskey martinis, Manhattans, old fashions, all of those cocktails, those are going to be stirred. Yeah, that's the
very good. I should have paid closer attention to James Bond and Ian Fleming. And
yeah, he always wanted it shaken, but no,
yeah.
An actual martini is made with gin and it's stirred.
Okay. All right, very good.
Yeah. All right. So when you get to the point where you have your cocktail build, hopefully everybody's keeping up over here. Make sure that you have your tin nice and locked. You do not want to start shaking. Things are going to start flowing over. I'll have to shake mine a little bit longer because I'm using these really big ice cubes. So just give me a second, okay?
I swear to God, the sound of an ice shaker is like one of my favorite sounds in the world. I think I just admitted I'm an alcoholic. But it really is.
There's a rhythm to it. It's a dance,
It's like a train sound to me. I love these.
Even better than the sound of my voice?
No, not nearly, darling.
All right, so from here, now the nerd in me is gonna do this. Don't feel so inclined to. We use things like julep strainers behind the bar. This is typically what you would use for a stirred cocktail. In my case, I double strain my cocktails. So if you have like a small flour sifter at home, you could use that as well. So I'll pour over my julep just to strain out some of those ice chips. And I'm gonna finish this cocktail with a nice little lime wheel. So I'll cut the lime as thin as I can. And I'll just float this right over the, can you see it? Yeah, I'll just float this right over the drink. Now, if you are using nice ice cubes, you could actually pull one out of that shaker that you made the drink with and set it inside. It won't melt. It's the same temperature as the cocktail, so it'll stay. It'll keep. And that's the
Cool. Cool. We should make a toast to Ryan and to better days ahead. To Edgar Rice Burroughs and the Tarzan Cocktail.
Chin chin.
Or as we say in the Burke family, double chin. So tell me about the coupe. Why are we drinking this in a coupe? Wow, this is really good, by the way.
It's delicious.
Yeah.
When it comes to the glassware that you're using, there's a fine line between an over-diluted daiquiri and an under-diluted one. So when you have the proper shake time on it, you have the dilution right, you want to make sure that you're putting it in a really cold glass, but you don't want to put it over ice because as that drink dilutes, it's not a strong enough spirit. So when it dilutes down, it doesn't taste like a cocktail anymore.
Oh, wow.
You want to have some backbone to it.
It's very good.
So who taught you the most about bartending?
Oh, that's tough. I would say myself. I did a lot of work outside of work, to get the skill set down and the spirit knowledge down. But if I had to put it up against one person, she has no idea that I would be saying this, but her name's Stephanie Andrews. She was the beverage director at Billy Sunday. I thought I was pretty good at my job until I stepped behind her bar, and then I was like, yeah, no, I need to
step up the game, huh?
Yeah, no, she's a beast. She was by far the strongest bartender I've ever met. She came from a kitchen background, and I think that has a lot to do with it. She had more discipline than anybody I've ever worked with.
Do you think it's the kitchen background that added the discipline
100%.
to the bar work?
100%.
Oh, that's interesting.
You learn balance in the kitchen more than you learn it behind the bar. You have a lot more ingredients to work with in the kitchen than you do behind the bar. You're kind of limited with what you can get behind the bar, and you always have to factor in, cost of product. It's cheaper to cook a really nice meal than it is to put together a fantastic cocktail, because some of that's going to be reliant on the spirit that you're using.
Oh, that's great. That's great. So I've got a little bit more information about Edgar Rice Burroughs, and maybe in the chat you can tell me whether you think this is true or false. In 1893, Edgar Rice Burroughs was the first to drive the first automobile in Chicago. True or false? Let the voting begin.
So Ryan, I have a question. If there were no restrictions for you, what bar would you like to bartend? Internationally, anywhere you could.
If I had zero restrictions, I would probably be at the Milk Room in Chicago.
Really?
Yeah.
What is this? What is the Milk Room?
Milk Room is in the Chicago Athletic Association.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. And they have the most extensive back bar of vintage spirits you've ever seen in your life.
Oh, wow.
I worked for a bar called Mordecai in the Hotel Zachary, across street from the Wrigley Field. Now, people think, Wrigleyville, it's a beer and shot neighborhood. It is. That bar is not. You walk in and you have rum from the late 1800s that's at your disposal. If you want to try that, you can. I've had medicinal rye whiskey from the year 1912. It was an 8-year-old rye whiskey that you need to be prescribed because this was during Prohibition. Now, the people that made that stuff are no longer here. So you're actually having a time capsule in a glass. Now, the bar that I worked at, which was Mordecai, it had a great back bar of vintage spirits. The Milk Room, on the other hand, it was next level. Yeah, no, it's seriously incredible.
Oh, cool, cool. Well, so here's, it turns out that if you're to believe the internet, and who doesn't, Edgar Rice Burroughs was in fact, he drove the first automobile in Chicago thanks to his father, whose new occupation was owner of the American Battery Company. Is that true or not true? I don't know. I just find this stuff on the internet and I spread it around. I didn't see any problem with that. I'll leave you. We're about to introduce Anne Marie Aiken, and then we'll enjoy our drinks and then come back for another drink. But I want to leave you with one inspiring piece of advice, writer to writer, that Edgar Rice Burroughs offers us. He says, if you write one story, it may be bad. If you write hundreds, you have the odds in your favor. So there's, I also don't know whether that's true or not. Here. So thank you, Ryan. We will enjoy our lovely cocktail. We first met Anne Marie. I thought it was like 10 years ago. It turns out it was a little bit longer than that. We did a fabulous, in the old days, we did a fabulous music and magic party when we lived in Ravenswood. She is a supreme talent, singer, songwriter, poet, and essayist, and we're thrilled to have her join us tonight for her first of two songs. So Anne Marie, we'll turn it over to you.
Oh, Mike, thank you. I hope you haven't oversold me. One thing that I was remembering, one year Mike gave my CD as gifts. And I know there are so many people on this call whose work Mike and Robert have given as gifts. And I just think that's a beautiful way to support the artist community. So this is a song that I wrote. This is a hot Chicago afternoon, about 6 months from now. This is called The Drink I Need. And this goes out to my sweetheart, who I do not think is on this call. But if you're there, this is to you. Mercury creeping up, my body's slowing down. Finally feels like my hometown. I need that summer heat to break out the winter in me, melt the cold in my bones right down. I'm thinking Memphis thoughts. I got my Delta talk. Summer always makes me think of you. Popsicle drips to the sidewalk. Something inside me melts, so sticky and so blue. I got my iced tea, and I got that central AC, but the long, cool drink I need is you. You are like lemonade, I want you in the shade. You're so sweet and so cool. Come sit neath the shady tree, I want you next to me. I will buy you a popsicle too. I got my iced tea, and I got that central AC, but the long, cool drink I need, the long, cool drink I need, the long, cool drink I need.
was terrific. That was terrific.
Thank you.
Thank you. Lots of applause and hands raised. Thank you, Anne-Marie. That was just absolutely wonderful. And
Thank you.
Anne-Marie will be joining us toward the end of our presentation here for a very different kind of song. But that was just phenomenal. So thank you so much. We're gonna down these drinks and we're gonna talk to Ryan a little bit more about cocktailing. Our next drink coming up, prepare yourself, is Death in the Afternoon, Ernest Hemingway's drink. So thank you, Anne-Marie. And why don't we ask Ryan, I think it's time for a little bit of history. And maybe Ryan could, better than anybody, tell us sort of Chicago's place in the cocktail landscape of the United States of America. I know some other cities, which we shall not mention, no, New Orleans, New York, are maybe a little more on the avant-garde or forefront of cocktailing. But why don't you tell us a little bit about where Chicago fits in that?
Well, I'll start by saying that Chicago historically is a beer and shot city, okay? For as long back as anybody's ever written about it, it's always been a beer and shot place. That doesn't mean that, you know, some really good cocktails haven't come from Chicago, but I will say that a lot more of the cocktails that we are familiar with today, like, you know, the Sazerac or the Manhattan, are coming from New York and New Orleans, predominantly New York and New Orleans. The Chicago Tribune was the first to write about the old fashioned, but it's unlikely that it came from Chicago. That was in the early 1900s, late 1800s. It's hard to pin a date to it. You know, everything is a riff off of everything and everything is word of mouth, you know, until somebody puts it in writing. And then it was hard to get the news from city to city. You know, what people were drinking in Chicago is not what people were drinking in Houston. So.
And how do you think that, say more recently, just in the past, say 5 years or 10 years, has Chicago upped its game? Are we on a upward trajectory, or where do you think things stand?
Absolutely. Chicago is a force to be reckoned with now with the food and beverage scene. We were a little late to the party. Obviously, you know, Chicago houses 4 million people and New York City houses 12 million people. So, you know, but Chicago has the most Michelin star restaurants per capita in the United States. So we do have an excellent food and dining scene. That being said, we do have some absolutely stellar bars. My favorites are going to be, obviously, it's going to be Billy Sunday. I think Billy Sunday is, you know, the best. You have the Aviary, if you're looking for places that are like liquid science. It's ran by Grant Achatz, who is the owner of Alinea. You have, what was that we were just talking about? A Violet Hour. I'm sorry, I had to get that for my wife.
That's Liz. Liz is there. Loud.
She tucked off in the side. Violet Hour. They actually introduced a cocktail in 2006, I believe, called the Paper Plane. And the Paper Plane is now a cocktail that's made all over the United States. It's privy to any reputable bar, which is going to be a rye whiskey or Aperol, lemon, and Cuantro cocktail. Now, that being said, you know, I would say Chicago's biggest achievement right now is going to be the most Michelin stars per capita.
Yeah.
And that's going to be heavily reliant on the bar programs as well. You know, the cocktails, the wine, you know, that plays a lot into acquiring a Michelin star and holding one.
We'll have to do the Paper Plane when we do. Don wants to do another event when we can all be in person. So
yeah.
we'll save the Paper Plane for there.
Absolutely.
We're going to move to Death in the Afternoon. So this brings us into the land of Ernest Hemingway, born, you know, in the late 1800s, died in 1961, inducted into the Chicago Literary Hall of Fame in 2012. Rich has put up the recipe on the chat there. Hemingway, arguably the most influential American writer. I remember hearing Tobias Wolff at a Chicago Humanities Festival event say that, if you're writing today, you're either trying to write like Ernest Hemingway or trying not to write like Ernest Hemingway. Winner of the Nobel Prize, probably should have gotten a Nobel Prize for his drinking as well. Death in the Afternoon was Hemingway's exhaustive and exhausting book on bullfighting. I just read that during the pandemic again. And this drink is going to step us up now into the world of absinthe. And so, Ryan, why don't you tell us what ingredients, what glassware we're going to need, and we'll turn it over to you for Death in the Afternoon.
Okay, so when it comes to Ernest Hemingway, he was a master drinker. You drink any one of us under the table. He would do one jigger of absinthe that ranged around 130 proof, and a flute of champagne until it reached proper milkiness. Now, I don't know if Hemingway used what side of the jigger, because you have one that's 2 ounces and then you have one that's 1 ounce. Now, I think that if for the daredevils, if you want to go ahead and put an ounce in there, go ahead. If you want to put 2 ounces in there, God bless you. me personally, I do a rendition along with most barkeeps in major cities. They're not putting an entire jigger of absinthe in there. Now, like I said earlier, I'm using an absinthe style liqueur called Pernod. So I will be making the recipe that you see in the chat box where it shows a half an ounce of absinthe with a sugar cube and 2 dashes of Peychaud bitters. This will call for a flute. I'm going to use a 10-ounce flat-sided coupe glass though, but if you're using a coupe, please, that's what it traditionally will call for. Now, if you are doing the original just 1 jigger of absinthe and fill it up with champagne, very simple. You're just going to add an ounce into your glass, and then you're going to top it with champagne. If you're going to use the one that's listed below with bitters and a sugar cube, you'll be taking your sugar cube, just drop it into your glass. Here I have Peychaud bitters. You can get these pretty much it's hard to see, at any liquor store. They should have them. We're going to go ahead and put 2 dashes of this right onto the sugar cube.
So let me see, you put the sugar cube in, and then what actually constitutes a dash? Just
1 hit down. Now, behind the bar, we'll use separate dasher bottles. We don't use these just because it's a little bit more controlled, and you're not just relying on a little plastic piece.
Okay.
But with this, again, you can do this to taste too. Peychaud's is delicious. It's got a lot of baking spice in it. And we're going to use this in our next cocktail as well. So this will get you a good idea of, how to use these bitters. A lot of folks, they see them at the store and they don't really know more than 1 drink to put them in. In reality, you could put them in anything. There's no better bartender than the home bartender.
That's reassuring. Thank you.
Yeah. You know your palate better than anybody. Now, in order to start having the sugar cube break down, now you don't want the sugar cube to break all the way down. It's something that as it sits, the cocktail will sweeten up a little bit. Now you'll take a half an ounce of your absinthe style liqueur or your absinthe, depending on what you're using. And your champagne. You can use cava as well. Again, it's still going to be delicious. I'm going to be using champagne though.
Okay. I think we have some California sparkling wine.
Oh yeah, delicious. It'll still be good.
We're helping out the California wine industry here.
How full do we fill the glass with champagne?
All the way?
Say that one more time.
Do we fill the champagne all the way up?
So you're not going to do it right away. So what I'm going to say is I'm going to put a dash,
Okay.
get it halfway, make sure that it doesn't start overflowing. Mine's
Okay.
not, we're good. And then, yeah, you're going to want to fill it all the way up. Should be about 4 to 5 ounces of champagne with your bitters and your sugar cube.
This looks good.
That's about right.
Is absinthe a, like, do you use absinthe when you and Liz are just drinking at home? Is it like your go-to drink?
I do. I enjoy the taste of absinthe. You know, I like licorice. I like wormwood. I like the bitterness. I like the potency. But again, it's an acquired taste. Now, a little bit of absinthe will go a long way in a drink. Like if you're drinking one of these right now, you're not going to get absinthe right away. You're only going to get it at the back end of it.
Yeah.
It's pleasant. You know, Ernest Hemingway, he was putting, you know, upwards of 2 ounces into his glass, you know, and that I would like that, but my wife wouldn't. So, you know, that's how, when it comes to making drinks at a bar, you have to be conscious of what people can handle and what they can't handle.
Terrific. Well, let us toast the Chicago Literary Hall of Fame. Long may it wave. Ooh, that's great.
Very good.
Yeah, that's terrific.
So Ryan, I have another question. Have you ever worked with stinging nettle? Are you familiar with that?
Say that one more time. I'm sorry.
The plant stinging nettle?
No.
It's a plant.
No,
Well, it's a
never
plant
worked.
that they actually do use apparently in some alcoholic beverages to infuse a drink, from what I've heard.
Sure.
I was just curious if you'd ever heard of it.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to, you know, infusing spirits with anything, or like building cocktails, putting it in a mason jar and putting, you know, cloves in there or whatever you wanted, absolutely. I recommend doing it. Experiment, you know. What's the worst that can happen? You don't like it.
Well,
That's-
911 perhaps.
That's it. So you mentioned wormwood earlier. What was that a reference to?
Well, I mean, there's wormwood and absinthe. Very bitter. If anybody, my Chicagoans should know this, maybe not outside of Chicago, but has anybody had Malort? Malort Malort is an Amari that is distilled from wormwood, extremely bitter, heavy on grapefruit notes, and, you know, really good after a huge meal. It does have medicinal purposes, you know, when you're drinking stuff like absinthe or, you know, Campari, Aperol. These are all Amaro. Amaro just means bitter in Italian.
Okay.
So absinthe will fall under that category.
Well, for any of those individuals out there who are interested in theology, check out the book of Revelation about wormwood.
Ooh, what does it say?
Well, they'll have to find out.
Is it good or bad? Nothing is good in the book of Revelation, right?
It's not really good.
Someone said, you don't have Malort. Malort has you. Touche.
Right. Well, talking about wormwood actually makes me think that this Ernest Hemingway character was maybe even a little bit more clever than I've given him credit for. So this is from a 1931 letter. 1931, Hemingway's writing to his pal Guy Hickok, and he's talking about an evening with absinthe in Key West, which Robert and I love Key West, but we're not there now. We're here in Chicago. So this is what Hemingway said. Got tight last night on absinthe and did knife tricks. Great success shooting the knife underhand and into the piano. The woodworms are so bad and eat hell out of all the furniture that you can always claim the woodworms did it. That's pretty good, isn't it?
It's good.
Yeah, I think that's pretty good.
It's a good story.
And then Hemingway in his 1950 interview with Lillian Ross at the New Yorker, here's another one of Papa's observations. He said, The half bottle of champagne is the enemy of man. If I have any money, I can't think of any better way of spending money than on champagne. So here's to absinthe drinkers, past, present, and future. Cheers. Now we're gonna switch gears a little bit. And we're gonna hear in a minute from Sandra Seaton. Ooh, that actually is so good. I need to have another sip first.
You're a good teacher, Ryan.
Yes, thank you so
It's a
much.
delicious drink. I can't take credit for it. I mean, that's all Ernest, but it's a really good drink.
Oh, it's so good. It's so good. So we are so thrilled tonight. Sandra Seaton is a playwright joining us tonight from Michigan, though she has a lot of experience here in Chicago. A playwright and who's also written books for operas. Her work has been performed Carnegie Hall, Kennedy Center, the Herbst in San Francisco, the Rialto in Atlanta, all over the country. She's her most, I think this is your most recent work, Sandra, you can correct me if I'm wrong, is Chicago Trilogy, which is the, it's 3 one-act plays based on the writings of Cyrus Coulter. And Cyrus Coulter was inducted into the Hall of Fame in 2011. Sandra's the real deal. And is Chicago Trilogy your most recent work that's been produced?
Well, hi, thank you so much, Robert. Well, actually, I did a libretto for an opera called Night Trip, and it's about a young woman whose uncles come to Chicago to pick her up and take her to see her relatives in the South, which is a very familiar thing. They pick her up on the west side of Chicago and take her to Tennessee. And
very good.
that was performed in January 2020.
Okay, very good, very good. Well, why don't we turn this over to you, and you can share a little of Cyrus here.
Now, do I need to do anything to start, right?
You're ready to go. You look
Ready to
terrific.
go. Well, as I was just saying, thank you. I grew up on the west side of Chicago, and I hope you can hear me.
We can.
And I went to the University of Illinois down Champaign-Urbana. I think they call it now Urbana-Champaign. We called it Chambana. And I met a few people that did remind me, and they were from the South Side, and they reminded me of some of the people in the Cyrus Coulter stories. As a matter of fact, a guy I knew whose father was a doctor over in Hyde Park, his family figures in one of Cyrus Coulter's stories. And Cyrus Coulter was, I'd say, he was a mover and shaker in the Chicago social scene and the African American community of the 60s and the 50s. But also, you know, he was an important person in the broader cultural scene. I'm pretty sure he was on the board of the Chicago Lyric. And the people in this excerpt that Don has asked me to read, Black for Dinner, which is from the Beach Umbrella, it gives you a glimpse of a world that will not, at the time it was written, it wouldn't have been familiar to the broader society. And it's what Du Bois would have referred to as behind the veil. And it's that world the African American world that was very discreet, but it was there. So this is Black for Dinner is about a woman who gets a dinner party together, and her name is Anita, and she has to have everything just so for this party. And she buys this beautiful black silk cocktail dress from Saks Fifth Avenue, has it delivered, expects her husband to adore the dress. He sees her in it, and he is not thrilled because he's already learned from his doctors that he has a heart condition and he is only has months to live. So, and she doesn't know this. So the Black for Dinner is an interesting title. Everyone there is black, her dress is black. Then there's the whole idea of black for mourning. So just to start, and she's very nervous about this party. She had invited Kate Horton, the undoubted social queen of the posh Hyde Park, Kenwood Black community, and was then surprised, a little awed even, when Kate accepted. It meant effort, she now realized, for everything had to be just so. And Alice Smiley, another guest and Kate's close friend, was just as fastidious as Kate. Neither had been to Anita's in over 2 years, not since the downstairs of her big house had been redone, complete with sumptuous draperies and a new sofa. So she knew everything. Furnishings, food, wines would undergo, albeit with gracious smiles, a searching examination. Yet she felt inert, immobile, unable to plan beyond the menu. Bemused, she lit a cigarette and stared off into space. She also remembered now she must have, Dave, that's her husband, check his liquor supply. She had already ordered the Burgundy and a case of very good champagne. She had felt she needed his special permission for the champagne, but you could not serve these people a shoddy champagne. As he left for New York, Dave had smiled and agreed he could be so casual when he was amused at her. Ah, and he must be warned against making any unfunny cracks about Alice's French poodles, for instance, or about Doug Horton's big boat. Mrs. Adams, the cateress, and her staff had arrived and were in full charge. There were 2 white-coated barboys, one to mix and one to serve, a sensual-looking brown-skinned waitress whom Thelma would assist, and Mrs. Adams herself, fat but very efficient. And this was written in the 60s, so okay. Dave sat down, loosened his tie, and sipped his drink. He was convinced it was the people that made a party. You could have the finest house, foods, wine, and all that, and then waste them on a bunch of bores like casting pearls, but it wasn't that way tonight. At 7 o'clock sharp, the household was ready. The bar boys idled in the pantry with their highballs and cocktail glasses in neat rows, and the liquor bottles capped with shining little spouts, as Thelma and the waitress, both in white uniforms, broke the pantry tedium with their hushed, eye-flashing frivolity. Up front, the blaze in the fireplace spread a roseate warmth over the whole parlor and dining area adjoining, and the paintings on the wall, the gilt mirrors bracketing the fireplace, the furniture, the rich draperies and oriental rugs, all fused to create the gracious, elegant atmosphere of the house. It was 25 minutes after 7 when the door chimes at last sounded. Thelma jumped. Then, recovering, she smoothed her uniform and hurried into the foyer to the front door, followed by Anita. The door opened on Hortense and Sully Weaver, smiling and stamping their wet shoes on the mat outside. Hortense, a highly styled, light brown-skinned woman, stepped in and grasped both of Anita's hands in her own. "Anita, hon," she purred. "How are you, darling?" Sully, dark brown with gleaming white teeth, a probate lawyer, entered and bent forward chivalrously to kiss Anita on the cheek. "Hi, sugar," he said. Dave appeared in the foyer now, his face drawn but smiling, and joined in the welcome. After Thelma took the wraps, the guests were ushered into the parlor. "Oh, the fire, Sully," Hortense cried, approaching the fireplace, rubbing her hands together. "It's wonderful, and on a night like this." They all sat down, and a barboy entered with a tray of canopies, and, as he passed them around, took orders for drinks. Anita cut in. "Maybe Mrs. Weaver would like champagne," she said to the boy. "Oh, I would," cried Hortense. "May I?" Sully had the same. "You can't go wrong with that," he laughed. "Until the next morning, that is." "Make it 3, Dave laughed to the barboy. As the boy left, the chime sounded again. Anita stood up before she thought, but then gave Thelma time to reach the door before following. It was Vashti and Walter Cooper. Vashti was a Wellesley graduate and a very proper person, tall and olive skinned. She resembled an East Indian. She had, in fact, traveled widely in the Orient. "Oh, Anita, how well you look," she said, smiling as she entered. Walter, a Savings and Loan Association president, was shorter than his wife and stood back, smiling whimsically through black horn-rimmed glasses. "Nice weather," he laughed to Dave at the first pause in the women's talk. "Lovely weather." After their wraps were handed over to Thelma, the new guests were escorted into the parlor with the others, where eager friendly greetings went all around. Vashti sat with Hortense on the French love seat and agreed to champagne, but Walter said if they didn't mind, he'd stick to scotch. The young bishops, Kitty and Roger, were the next to arrive. They came in laughing hilariously about what they referred to as the new escalation clause in their babysitter's contract. Roger was an English instructor at the University of Chicago, and Kitty, of an excellent Atlanta family, studied at the Sorbonne. They had 3 fine children and not the means to entertain on any elaborate scale, but nonetheless moved easily among the South Side's most cultivated people. Kitty was brown and beautiful, a girl with laughing eyes, who, despite her children, had retained her angular figure. She enjoyed the innocent conversation and flattery of older men, and all wives watched her. Roger, tall and athletic looking, looked more like a basketball coach than a university instructor. His field was modern literature and his avocation chess. The pair sparked any party they attended, and notwithstanding Kitty's dangerous beauty, they were on the favorite list of every hostess. 10 minutes later, over the mild noise of talk, the door chimes sounded again. Anita, though seized with jitters, did not move this time and arose only when she saw Thelma enter the foyer. The remainder of the guests had arrived. The Hortons and the Smileys had come together. Kate and Alice swept in. Both were bareheaded and swaddled in mink, followed by burly Douglas Horton and Fritz Smiley. Dave, too, was at the door now. And this is Dave's doctor showing up. Doug Horton seemed slightly drunk. He was a light tawny brown, square, beefy, and graying at the temples, and when he smiled, exhibited large, prominent teeth. He came from one of the most distinguished Black families in the country, had inherited wealth, and made money in his own right as a community banker and publisher. But now at 55, he spent more time in travel and in sumptuous living than at work. He was known to like women, and whenever he put his cunning eyes on Kitty Bishop, An animal turbulence was triggered inside him that persisted for days. He smelled of liquor now as he smiled and quickly shook Dave's hand. Then he made a stiff, smiling bow to Anita and passed on into the parlor. Fritz Smiley was a surgeon and contributed to the medical journals. Like his wife Alice, he was very light-skinned and thin, almost cadaverous. And though he gave Alice all the money she wanted, he was cold and steel-nerved, rarely showing her affection, but he was cordial to Dave now as they shook hands. And in the story, this is a long story, they're going to have a conversation about Dave's illness. Kate stood preoccupied and glancing toward the parlor, seemed intent on keeping an eye on her husband. She was totally patrician, a beautifully proportioned woman of 50 with erect carriage and soft brown skin, although recently delicate crow's feet had appeared at the corners of her eyes. Her features were chiseled and severe, almost satanic, well, relieved only by a pleasant mouth and eyes that could dance when amused. She was born and grew up in Chicago, was a graduate of the University of Chicago, and spoke careful, immaculate English. An enthusiast of the serious theater, she occasionally gave play reading parties that were brilliant and sought after. With wealth, culture, and a fading beauty, she was the community's supreme hostess and social figure. The company was at last complete as the bar boys in their white jackets scurried back and forth with drinks. Doug Horton, seated alone, brusquely declined champagne, requesting a dry, very dry martini. He then scrutinized a plate of canapes on the coffee table and after serious study, selected a caviar. He put the morsel to his mouth, skinned off the paste with his top teeth, and dropped the denuded bit of toast into an ashtray. When the martini came, he speared out the anchovy olive and chewed it reflectively. Then, lifting the small crystal beaker, coolly drained it off and set it on the coffee table. He looked across the room now at young Kitty Bishop. She was talking rapidly to Dave and to Hortense and sighed. Across the room, Anita took her first glass of champagne from the moving tray. She looked at Dave repeatedly, glad to see his mood improve, even if he persisted in ignoring her. And Dave ignores Anita all evening. She expects him to adore the black dress, but he doesn't want anything to do with seeing his wife in a black dress. So finally, the hubbub of talk and laughter had increased. Once even Dave had let out a sort of whoop at one of Roger Bishop's clever remarks. At the other end of the table, Fritz Smiley sat and watched his friend Doug across from him. How in creation, he wondered, could he drink all that alcohol? Those lethal martinis and the food. Fritz gazed now at Katie. Fritz gazed now at Kitty. She was beautiful, no doubt about it, very. But old Doug would never get her. She was too slick. Much too slick for Doug. She was something special. He suspected her case required cold calculation, not liquor.
Sandra, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Don,
Black
thank
for
you.
dinner.
Don gave me a quite a bit to read there. That was
Well,
Don
thank you
picked that
very
for us.
much. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Everyone, a round of applause for Sandra Seaton and Cyrus Coulter. Black for dinner. Wow. Powerful, powerful, powerful stuff. And we'll have to get Chicago Trilogy restaged here in Chicago. We would love to see that. So
Yeah, so I turned this into a play.
Ah, very good.
So this is a play. I wrote a play based on Chicago trilogy, and it's a chance meeting about a butler and a chauffeur, and then the lookout and Black for Dinner. And it's 3 plays in Chicago. Black for Dinner is one of them.
Well, I know the Chicago Literary Hall of Fame staged this up in Evanston, and we missed it. So we'll have to catch it the next time. So thank you again.
Oh, my pleasure. It was fun. It
Yeah,
was fun.
great.
Thank you.
Great. And I hope you'll stick around. We've got one more drink, one more song, and then maybe a little bit of magic once we open up the party. Ryan, we do want to, as we move on to the Sazerac, we want to ask you 2 questions. The first is, who of, all the time that you worked, who were your favorite customers?
Obviously, you two.
Great. All right. That's one question.
You must have gotten the check.
So the other question is, so bartenders are often therapists,
Oh, yeah.
You hear a lot of confessions sitting on your side of the bar. What's the strangest thing you've ever heard someone?
Sordid thing you can
Can you
tell
share
us.
it with us? Remember, it's a family show.
Well, the strangest thing I ever heard, I cannot share with you. The second strangest thing I ever heard, actually, the second wildest thing I ever heard is somebody had just won the lottery.
Oh, wow.
Is that right?
Yeah, and they were
Wow.
celebrating it with me. They had just won 50 grand.
Oh, my God.
I hope they gave you a very generous tip.
Randy
Oh, they
Albers
did.
is a big tipper, so I'm sure that came out.
They spent some money on me that night, but yeah, they won 50 grand on a scratch off.
Scratch off. See?
Yeah, and they were loud about it too at the bar. I'm like, yeah, you guys should be a little bit.
Well, we are moving on to the Sazerac, and thank you, Robert. Robert's been busy making my drinks, so thank you so much. This is America's first cocktail, I think,
Yeah.
if I have that right.
Godfather.
God bless America.
Well, not the Godfather cocktail. That's a cocktail. This is the original. This is what started it all.
Ah, very good. And our associated author with this one tonight is Edna Ferber. And Edna refers to this drink so she wrote a lot of novels, a lot of stories, and this comes from her novel Saratoga Trunk. Edna Ferber was born 1885. She died in 1968. She was inducted into the Chicago Literary Hall of Fame in 2013. She's probably most famous she won the Pulitzer Prize for So Big, I think it was called, in 1924. But she's probably even more famous for writing Showboat, which turned into the major musical and the major movie, and Giant, which also turned into the Rock Hudson, James Dean, what was her name? Elizabeth Taylor movie. There's a famous story. Ferber lived here in Chicago for a long time, and I'll tell a little bit more about that as we're making the drink. But she collaborated with George S. Kaufman on, was it Dinner at 8, I think is her play. The cocktails are kicking in, I think it was Dinner at 8. And so she was part of the roundtable crowd. She circulated in and out of that. And there's this story that she is walking up to the crowded roundtable, and it happens to be a day when Noel Coward is there. And Noel Coward looks at Edna, and Edna was dressed sort of handsomely, we'll say. And Noel Coward says, "Why, Edna, you look almost like a man." And Edna Ferber replied immediately, "So do you, Noel. So do you." So, one of my favorite Edna Ferber stories.
That's a good one.
It's a good one. So Ryan, tell us about the Sazerac. What are the ingredients? What kind of glass are we going to need? What are we doing here?
I'll put it in the chat.
All right, so the Sazerac, this is my favorite. This is the first cocktail you learn how to make when you start getting into the more serious side of the barkeeping world. The Sazerac was invented in the 1800s. Initially, this cocktail was made with cognac. In the year 1870, due to rodent infestation problems in Europe's vineyards, there was a large or wildly short, there was a problem with the production of cognac. Cognac's made from wine grapes. So in 1870, it would switched from cognac to rye whiskey. Now, the recipe that I have in here, this is the recipe that we use at our bars in the city, is it's a split base of rye whiskey and French cognac. Now, this cocktail, the most important thing about this cocktail is this glass. It needs to be really cold. Now, considering that we are serving this neat, meaning no ice in the glass, we'll be doing an absinthe rinse. And after you make your cocktail, the glass needs to be cold so the drink keeps its temperature while you're drinking it. Now, it's not a very large drink as far as volume goes, but it is a potent drink. And when it comes to room temperature, it is a little bit harder to put down. The first thing that we'll be doing with this is we're going to be adding a touch of absinthe to our glass. Here, let me move my computer. So we'll be adding a touch of absinthe to our glass. Now, I have a couple large rocks in here, and I had the glass frozen before this. If you are starting with a room temperature glass, fill it all the way up with ice, and we're going to put about a half an ounce to an ounce of absinthe in the glass.
Okay, so first, just so we can catch up, slightly impaired at this point, some ice.
Mm-hmm.
And do we shake the ice in the glass to chill it, or it's okay just as it is?
Just fill the glass up. The next step, we'll get to that.
Okay, so we got the glass full of ice. Friends at home, glasses full of ice. What's next?
So rocks glass full of ice. Okay. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna take our glass and we're gonna put it on its side, and we're gonna turn the glass in our hands. Try and hold it from the bottom, just because you don't want to pass off a bunch of heat from your fingers onto the side of the glass.
Ooh.
And what we're doing is we're rinsing the glass in absinthe. We're gonna coat this glass with our absinthe style liqueur or our actual absinthe, and it's gonna give this drink an excellent aroma. So once you get this nice and coated, you're gonna set it off to the side, and then separately we're gonna build our cocktail in a mixing glass. Now, if you are at home and you don't have one of these, feel free to just use a normal rocks glass or a normal drinking glass. Again, if you don't have a bar spoon, feel free to use a chopstick. It's the same idea. Okay.
Okay.
Now, when you're building this drink, we're gonna start with our Peychaud bitters. Again, heavy on baking spice, and then this drink, we're gonna go with 4 dashes.
Four dashes.
4 dashes. If you want to put a little bit more, that's okay. I personally, I like a little bit more Peychauds in my Sazerac, but minimum 4 dashes. So you'll take
In there.
4 dashes into your mixing glass. Guys, am I going too fast?
No, we're good. I just have to, what's occurring to me is we need to up our cocktail game. We don't have a mixer. So do you mind if we run out to Crate and Barrel and get a mix? We're using the other glass.
Anybody that's looking to add barware to their kitchen, stuff that is nice, it's going to last you a really long time, and you're not going to Target or Mariano's to get it. There's a company called Cocktail Kingdom. Cocktail Kingdom. That's where I go. So you see, I have my little skull bar spoon here. I have a whole collection of bar spoons that I use. Again, bar spoon. If you guys see me using my different sized jiggers, This is all from Cocktail Kingdom.
Okay, very good.
Yeah, I would check them out. They do all of their business online. They're based in New York City.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Now with this drink, I'm using a 1-to-1 Demerara syrup. Now,
Okay.
a Demerara syrup, it's a simple syrup, but using sugar in the raw.
Okay.
So equal parts boiling water to sugar in the raw. If you are at home and you're using simple syrup, that's quite all right.
Okay.
Yeah, it's totally fine. Demerara syrup, it's just a little bit thicker. It'll give you a little bit more of a silky texture. Now, in the recipe that we have in the chat, it calls for a half an ounce. If you want to do a quarter of an ounce, that's all right. Half an ounce, it'll be a little bit sweeter, a little bit easier to drink. If you want to taste your spirit more, I would stick to maybe a quarter ounce or a little bit more than a quarter ounce. It's really up to you guys.
Okay, very good.
For mine, I'm going to use a quarter ounce. But again, if you're at home and you want a little bit sweeter of a drink, then I would go a half.
So
you're
we're adding the simple syrup.
Yeah. Simple syrup or Demerara syrup, whichever one you have.
Let me, I'm just noticing the chat too, and James Van Garner is mentioning the Sazerac house in New Orleans. And that is the place where the Sazerac was invented, right? Or is that a myth?
It is. I've been there. It's fantastic.
What's your favorite watering hole in New Orleans?
My favorite watering hole in New Orleans by far is going to be a bar called Jewel of the South.
Jewel of the South, okay.
Jewel of the South. It was a bar that opened in the 1800s. It closed down, and a guy, his name's slipping me right now. He's one of my favorite bartenders in New Orleans. He bought the rights to it and reopened the bar. And my wife and I went there last year for my birthday, and he actually did some work with some of the beverage directors that I've worked with in Chicago. I mentioned this to him, and he rolled out the red carpet. That man can really make a drink.
Oh, great.
Oh,
All right.
Fantastic.
One day we will travel again. Jewel of the South and Sazerac House will be on the
The
list.
Sazerac House is in a hotel in NOLA, and I went there. And when they were making this drink, they were using glasses that were frozen, and they were putting absinthe in the glass and throwing them 20 feet up in the air and spinning them and catching them behind the bar, because that's how they used to do it back in the day. It was wild. And if you were at that bar and how upscale it is, I would be terrified to throw a glass. 100%.
Welcome to New Orleans, right?
Especially if you imbibe while you work. I mean, yeah, it's terrifying.
Well, I interrupted our drink making. Sorry about that.
Sorry, I can talk about this stuff all day, guys.
No, this is all good. All good. What's
Now,
next?
You're going to be doing this with cognac. It's split base cognac and rye whiskey. So you'll do 1 ounce cognac. Again, this cocktail was made fully with rye or cognac up until 1870, where it switched over to rye because of a shortage in cognac. And then you'll be doing 1 ounce rye whiskey.
1 ounce rye whiskey. Okay.
If you are looking for a delicious rye to have at home, I see somebody down at the bottom there. She had a bottle of Sazerac rye. That's a good one too. Yeah, there you are. Yeah, I see. Okay. I like Sazerac rye. I like Rittenhouse rye.
Rittenhouse. Okay. Very good. We've got the cheap stuff.
Well, this is Jack Daniel's rye, Tennessee straight rye whiskey.
Jack Daniel's is good. Jack Daniel's is not cheap. I think Jack Daniel's is just fine.
Oh, good. All right.
Yeah. All right. And then, so you have your Peychaud's, your sugar, your rye whiskey, and your cognac. You're going to add your ice to your mixing glass.
Okay.
Now, for anybody at home that is using a mixing glass, or anybody that's not, the way that we do this is you are going to start at noon and pull down to 6, and then push back up to noon. Okay. Now, when a bartender makes a drink and they're stirring a cocktail, you can see that it's quiet. First off, that means the ice is not jumping around. And second off, that the back of the spoon is always touching the inside of the glass. Okay, so that's the proper way to stir a cocktail.
Oh, very good.
Yeah, with larger ice cubes, you'll want to stir a little bit longer. For the folks that are using like the crescent ice cubes or the party ice cubes at home, you could probably stop stirring right now. I'm gonna keep going for a little bit longer because I'm using larger cubes here. Good. And then real quick, one more time before we discard our absinthe rinse, you want to just go ahead, give it one more go around.
Okay. And then discard it.
And then discard.
Into the sink.
I like to, after I dump the ice out, there'll always be just like a touch of absinthe sitting on the glass. I like turning it around and making sure I just get a little bit more. And then we're gonna strain this straight into our rocks glass.
Okay. I remember I asked you this at Band of Bohemia, and our other more sophisticated friends in the party probably understand this, but I've noticed in my lifetime on Earth, going to bars, that at the better establishments, a bartender will dip a bar straw into a drink and then taste it. And I always thought, until I met you, that was just bartenders taking a little bit of a drink throughout the course of the night to get them through the night. But there's actually a professional purpose behind that, right? To get the flavors right and the taste
Absolutely, absolutely. When you're making a drink, especially when it comes to dilution of a cocktail, or if you're doing a dealer choice where somebody's like, hey, I like acid forward cocktails with a bitter finish, and you're like, okay, well, here, let me just make something just for you, and you're doing a riff off of another cocktail, but you haven't really practiced this one. Yeah, you need to taste it before you give it to them, because who knows, maybe you're busy, you forgot to put any sort of sugar in there, and you're serving them a glass of acid and alcohol. It'll be pretty gross.
Perfect. It's perfect.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Always. It's just like when you're cooking at home and you're making, for me, it's mashed potatoes. I want to make sure that I have enough salt in there. You just got to taste them as you go. And then when it comes to this next step, I know that everybody's peeled a potato before. This is not like that. I'm using a Y peeler here. As you can see, the shape of it's a Y. This is what we use behind a bar. When you're using this, you always want to make sure that your fingers are not in the exit part of this blade. Just take it from my experience. I've cut off a lot of fingernails doing this when I first started.
Whoa!
If you're more comfortable, I would put it down on here. Again, just be very careful, especially if you're making drinks at home and you've had a few. This can be a really dangerous tool.
Okay.
What you're gonna do is you're gonna swath your lemon like so, and then you're gonna take the outside of the lemon, the oily side of the lemon, not the pith side, the oily side, and you're gonna put it over your drink, and you're gonna pinch it, and it's gonna express a whole bunch of oil over the top of your drink, so your drink's gonna smell like lemon and licorice.
Oh wow!
Yeah. Now
The outside of the lemon?
Yeah.
In the nicer bars, we manicure our swaths. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna trim this down, give it a nice little shape, and I'm gonna cut a little notch in the top of it. That way, when I set it in my drink, it's going to stay on the side of my glass.
Oh, look at that! Look at that!
And that's why you're the professional.
Yeah, but I mean, if you have company and you want to,
Up your
try
game.
something.
That's very
You
nice.
want to impress
Very
them.
nice. All right.
Sazerac, that
Thank you,
is
Robert.
the first cocktail ever. This is the first drink.
All right, here's to America's first cocktail. May it not be our last. Cheers.
Enjoy.
Ooh, that's good. That's very good. Ooh, that's very
It
good.
has a kick to it, that's for sure.
Well,
this
Ryan,
is-
thank you so much. Thank you. How about, I'm going to ask everybody as we're enjoying our Sazeracs here, round of applause, hands up in the air for Ryan Prindle. Ryan, this has been educational
Thank you,
as
Ryan.
well as delicious. And we are forever grateful for your help with the Chicago Literary Hall of Fame for this. And we will do this again when we can go in person. We're about to go to a song with Anne Marie, but I want to share a little bit about Edna Ferber since we've got her drink associated here. So when Edna Ferber lived in Chicago, she lived with her mother and her sisters in hotels and apartments on Chicago's South Side, first on Vincennes and later in Eastview Park at the Windermere Hotel in Hyde Park. And I just want to share how she described Chicago at the time. And maybe I'm going to take a little sip of this to get into the spirit. And this is Edna Ferber describing Chicago back in the day. Just to be out on the Chicago streets with their smoke-blackened apartment houses and their bedlam of loop traffic, their misty green lakeside parks and windswept skyscrapers, strange mixture of provincial town and cosmopolitan city, with the stink of the stockyards from the west side and the fresh tang of the Lake Michigan from the east side. This was to know adventure. And then later on, she wrote a little bit about how she was inspired by Chicago in writing stories. And she said, Chicago stories tumbled one after another out of my typewriter. New Year's Eve in a Chicago Loop hotel, a woman buyer in a Chicago department store, a clerk in a cut price shoe store. They were stories of working people, of the little people, of those who got the tough end of life. So here's to Edna Ferber and to all of the great writers we've heard from tonight. And we're gonna, before we break to the, or I think how we're gonna do this, let me get my logistics right. I think Rich is gonna ask us, we're all gonna go on mute except for Anne Marie. And Rich is gonna bring us all into the party together. And Anne Marie's gonna sing this last song, which may incorporate some of your lyrics. And we're gonna be asked to sing along at home. So everyone be on mute, but sing along at home.
It's a fake bar sing-along because Zoom does not allow us to be able to sing in unison yet. So this is as close as we can get. Shall I start? Rich, do you want to pin me or? All right, so I don't know if you all know, but first of all, what I wish I were singing was, I've been to a marvelous party, but with Mike and Robert and all. But the sea shanty is enjoying a sudden intense resurgence, and there's an entire TikTok channel called Sea Shanty TikTok. So if you're a denizen of Sea Shanty TikTok, you're going to recognize both of these songs. And so these are, I'm loosely calling this mashup, What Shall We Do with a Drunken Writer? There once was a writer who put to sea. The name of the book was a mystery. The winds blew hard, her pen dipped down. Now blow, my bully boys, blow. Soon may the editor come to bring us sugar and tea and rum. Someday when the publishing's done, we'll take our book and go. Way, hey, in up she rises, way hey, and up she rises, way hey, and up she rises early in the morning. What shall we do with a drunken rider? What shall we do with a drunken rider? What shall we do with a drunken rider early in the morning? All right, here's your first verse. Put her in the lake till the alewives come in. Put her in the lake till the alewives come in. Put her in the lake till the alewives come in. Put her in the lake till the alewives come in early in the morning. Way hey. And honestly, y'all can unmute if you want to. It will be utter chaos, but do we really care? Way hey, and up she rises, way hey, and up she rises, way hey, and up she rises early in the morning. And from Mary Nell,
There you go. Your star.
put him in bed with the editor's daughter. Put him in bed with the editor's daughter. Put him in bed with the editor's daughter. Put him in bed with the editor's daughter early in the morning. Way hey, and up she rises, way hey, and up she rises, way hey, and up she rises early in the morning. Okay, the next verse, leave him in Oak Park till he dries out. Leave him in Oak Park till he dries out. Leave him in Oak Park till he dries out. Leave him in Oak Park till he dries out early in the morning. And it's way hey, and up she rises, way hey, and up she rises, way hey, and up she rises early in the morning. Change the presets on his Microsoft dock. Change the presets on his Microsoft dock. Change the presets on his Microsoft dock. Change the presets on his Microsoft dock early in the morning. Way hey, and up she rises, way hey, and up she rises, way hey, and up she rises early in the morning. All right, we got 2 more verses here, unless anybody wants to add anything in the chat. Put them in the Zoom chat until they're sober. 1, 2, everyone sing. Put them in the Zoom chat until they're sober. Put them in the Zoom chat until they're sober. Put them in the Zoom chat till they're sober early in the morning. Get them in a fight about the Oxford comma. Here we go. Get them in a fight about the Oxford comma. Get them in a fight about the Oxford comma. Get them in a fight about the Oxford comma early in the morning. Now everyone sing with the really cute dog. Way hey, and up she rises, way hey, and up she rises, way hey, and up she rises early in the morning. What shall we do with the drunken rider? What shall we do with the drunken rider? What shall we do with the drunken rider early in the morning? Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Robert.
That was wonderful.
Wonderful. Thank you, Anne-Marie. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And good singing, everybody. You were so on tune. Oh my God, it was so good.
Nobody was off key at all. No.
Nobody was off key, just perfectly on tune. Just wonderful. So Rich, feel free to open us up, bring us all together.
Oh, here we
And
go.
I want to, as we do that, we'll thank once again, Don, Rich, everybody at Chicago Literary Hall of Fame, Sandra, Ryan, Anne-Marie, and all of you for joining us. We can hang out here for a little while. If there's questions that you want to ask Ryan about cocktailing, that would be fine. And I think we also have a little bit of magic. I think should we, now you have not set this up with Liz, right? Should we?
No, I like how you take over for me.
Okay, I will do that.
I just wanted to say,
Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce my favorite magician of all time,
Okay.
Robert Charles.
So, Rich, can you spotlight Liz, please? I think Liz is still with us.
I'm here.
We only have this thing on here.
Yes, I am here.
Oh, hello, Liz. Hello, Aiden.
Hello.
So earlier today, I emailed Liz and asked her to have a coin, a key, and a pen, and 3 pieces of paper. And that's all she knows. You agree with that, Liz?
Yes.
That's all you know, right?
Yes, and I have a
Okay, very
sample.
good. Okay, now when it comes to mystery entertainment, so Rich, could you put both Liz and I together on the screen?
Spotlight the two.
Spotlight the two of us?
There you go.
Thank you, that helps. When it comes to mystery entertainment, usually the audience doesn't know what's going to happen at the end. But I'm going to give you just a little hint of what might happen at the end. It has to do with the smile. Liz, remember, it's all about the smile. Okay? Okay? The smile. So take your pen and on one of the pieces of paper, write the number 1. And when you've done that, on another piece of paper, write the number 2. And no surprise here, number 3 on the final paper. So what you should do now is take number 1 and put it on your left, number 2 in the middle, and 3 to your right. So you should have something before you that looks like this, correct?
Yes.
Now, let's just verify that I cannot see what you're doing because that's important. I don't want to see what you're doing at all. So take any object that you want. It can be the coin, the key, the pen, and put it on any one of those numbers that you want. Have you done that? Oh, you're very fast. Wow. Sometimes you get ahead of the game. Yeah, that's okay.
Okay.
Okay, now take a second object, any one you want, and put it on another number, any one you want. And you could try to fake me out, like move your shoulders around a bit, pull me off. That's okay.
Okay.
And you've done that, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so we have one object left, and you put that on the final number.
Okay.
Okay. So at this point, I have no idea what object.
I did.
Correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm going to give you some instructions. So what I would like for you to do is to switch the coin and the key. Switch the coin and the key. Now, if there's nothing to the right or to, just go ahead and switch them. Have you done that?
Yes.
Okay. Now switch whatsoever on 1 and 2.
Okay.
Okay. Switch the key to the right. Now, if there's nothing to the right of the key, you don't switch, but you can still fake me out like there's, something there.
Okay.
Oh, you've done that? Okay. Now switch the pen to the left. And once again, if there's nothing to the left, then you don't switch, but you can try to fake me out if you want. Have you done that?
Yeah.
Oh, very good. Okay. And now switch the coin to the right. Okay. And now switch what's on number 2 and 3.
Okay. Yes.
And now switch what's on 1 and 3.
Oh, wait. Hold on. Okay. All right.
I was hoping you'd be able to follow instructions, but apparently you've been drinking like I have. You see, when I'm actually hired, when people pay me money, I do not drink.
This was a volunteer position.
I understand, and so is this really at one level. So I'm hoping that you're smiling when this is over.
Mm.
I think you will be. I'm not so sure that I will be. We'll just have to wait and see. So those are all free choices that you made, correct? I mean, I had no idea what choices you made. But remember, I said in the beginning, it was all about the smile, right?
Right.
So now, whatever is in position number 3, pick that up with your hand, but I don't want to see it. Make sure it's still below the camera. I don't want to see what it is. Okay, do you have it?
Yes.
Okay. I said it's about the smile. So I'm thinking that this will be the outcome. You know, as I said, when I perform, I don't drink, but I'm being paid.
You keep emphasizing.
Yes. So I'm sensing that it was the pen. Would you hold up the object and verify? It was the coin. Oh my, well, there you go. No more drinks for me. I've been cut off.
I'm not good with the flipping. I'm thinking it was the me.
Okay. On to the party. That didn't happen in rehearsal. No, we didn't rehearse this. Okay. Thank you, everybody.
So this is
Yes.
the lesson. Don't try magic after you've done 3
No,
drinks from
no,
Ryan
no.
Prindle. I think that's the lesson in that magic effect.
Okay, moving right along.
Thank you, Liz.
Thank you, Liz. I appreciate your participation.
Thank you.
Welcome.
So have we got any questions for Ryan in the chat there?
Do we? I don't know.
Don, I can't see if we do or not.
So we don't need to get them in the chat. If people want to talk, they can.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, they're free to
Oh, the gallery? Okay.
participate now. So just
Yep.
Well, that sounds like fun. Just unmute everybody, right?
So it
Yeah.
totally worked. I had the pen in 3. I was playing along.
I should have picked you. Julia, see, I should have picked you.
I had the key in 1 and the coin in 2 and the pen in 3. And I'm like, I have the pen.
He was probably sensing
My
you.
fault. Yeah, it was me.
So it is Liz's fault. Oh, wow.
It's okay. You know,
You know
it
what?
wasn't like it was brain surgery. You know,
I
there's
asked-
no legality involved, no lawyers. That's the most important thing.
I asked Margaret to give me a second death in the afternoon, and she said, "No way, we can't do that. We got a third drink." And what is that? That's her second death in the afternoon.
Yes,
There's
yes.
only so much champagne and I had to prioritize myself. Save yourself. Save
And you
yourself.
did quite well.
Great job. Great job.
2 deaths in the afternoon.
I would just like to share something about Ernest
And
Hemingway.
there's Karen. Oh, I'm sorry, what?
I would just like to share something about Ernest Hemingway as you were
Yes.
doing the brief intro. And of course, so many people know so much about him, especially people who live in Oak Park, but the Chicago area in general. And although I'm not from Oak Park originally, my name has been on a lease or a mortgage since 1973. So I just know a little bit. And I was a volunteer with the Hemingway Society for a few years before everything got closed down. However, there was a fabulous 100th birthday party celebration held at the Hemingway birth home on Oak Park Avenue on July 21st, 1999. And there was a reenactment of Dr. Ed, Ernest Hemingway's dad, coming out onto the porch with his bugle in order to announce to the neighborhood that the baby had arrived. He
Oh,
had
wow.
delivered, in fact, he had delivered his son. He had delivered his son. And there were some people in my household, that's my oldest daughter, who's now 33, although she was a bit younger at the time, who didn't really cotton to the idea of being over there at 7 a.m. on a Saturday morning. But once she got there with a neighborhood, excuse me, a neighborhood friend, it was such a festive atmosphere. It was so much fun. And all of his living sons came for the celebration.
Oh, cool.
So it was really quite something. It was really quite enjoyable. It was. Anyway, so you didn't mention his birth year. I don't know that you mentioned his actual birth date either, but that's okay. It's because it's easy to find, but it is July of 1899 he was born. So
Terrific.
I share that with the crowd.
Terrific. And I don't know, is John Barry still on the, is he still with us here at the party? John, I think we've not met, but I think you're the had been president of the American Library Association and now is president of the Hemingway Foundation, I think, right? John is not here. He has gone. But
He's left the
I
building.
see Karen McCartan, who had Iggy Pop.
Yes.
Was that Iggy dancing along with us?
The dancer was Biggie Smalls, the notorious PUP. Iggy, the rapper, he was dancing. Billie Holiday and Iggy Pop are down for naps, I think. But everyone here's a rock star, so yeah. But no, except for Paul. But yes, the dancing was Biggie. He is so spoiled, and so we make him perform. That's the price to get carried around ridiculously all day. So.
Well, it's so good to see you, Karen, and to see you, Paul, as well. It's been a long time.
So Robert and Mike, we got a couple of questions in the chat.
Okay.
Do you have a good recipe for gin and ginger liquor, which is a question for Ryan? And then kind of a follow-up question from Jill Stewart. What does a well-stocked bar look like for the home bartender?
So
Ooh, that's a great question. Sorry.
there's a couple questions in here. I'll start with the first one. Biggest difference between Cuantro and Grand Marnier. Cuantro is made from sugar beet, and Grand Marnier is actually made from cognac. I think I said earlier that Cuantro was made from cognac. No, there is distillate of white wine grape in cognac or in Cuantro. Grand Marnier though is straight cognac. That's why it is a little bit more expensive than Cuantro. Cuantro is good, but it's not Grand Marnier. So those are going to be the biggest differences between those two. If you're looking for a good recipe using ginger and gin, which is an excellent combination, it is easy if you follow this recipe. Okay, so when you're making a syrup, go to the store, get yourself a couple knuckles of ginger, bring it home, take the back of a spoon and scrape off, instead of a potato peeler, just the back of a spoon, scrape off the bark of the ginger knuckles, cut it up into chunks, and add it to a 1-to-1 syrup. With gin, I'm definitely going to recommend doing it with a simple syrup, not a demerara syrup. And then when you make a syrup like that, the only thing that you need to know is you want to have equal parts acidity to sugar. Now, if you're doing a ginger cocktail using gin as your base spirit, I would go 2 ounces of gin with 3/4 of an ounce of lime and 3/4 of an ounce of a ginger syrup. That's it. Just those 3 things. Everything is based off of the classic cocktail build, which is stuff like a daiquiri, stuff like a margarita, cocktails like an old fashioned or a Manhattan. It's all the same stuff, just using different components, but the builds are pretty similar. And then as far as a well-stocked home bar for a barkeep, I will typically keep 1 bottle of each at the house all the time. Do I go out and buy these extravagant bottles on the daily? No, absolutely not. I stick to things in the $20 to $30 range, stuff like Rittenhouse. This is my favorite rye for the price, you know. My favorite gin is going to be Tanqueray and Hendrix. I like both of those. They're delicious. They're not very expensive and they're very good. I also am a big beer drinker and a big wine drinker. So, I mean, I'm not like Hemingway. I can't sit there and knock down the hard stuff every single day. I can't function that way. So, you know, on my day-to-day stuff is beer. I like drinking beer. And then there was one more question. Sorry, I don't mean to take up too much more time. one more question was where I'm gonna be next. I actually, I am no longer a part of the barkeeping community professionally. I left. With the pandemic that happened, I had to. I am now a financial advisor for Northwestern Mutual. So yeah.
Making real money.
Yeah, well, that also, consistent money, I suppose. But yeah, with the pandemic, it all happened kind of weird. I left the bartending business right when the pandemic was happening. It was sort of intentional, sort of unintentional. Bartending and hospitality is a young man's game. And I'm getting to the point now where it's a lot harder to show up at the house at 3:00 in the morning, So I bartend strictly for fun now. I was a bartender for 12 years, 50 hours a week for 12 years. And I'm very grateful for what I learned, and I'm going to take it with me for the rest of my life, but it's just not something that I do professionally anymore.
Well, this is great. I know we've got an idea for a couple of drinks have come up even just tonight for drinks the next time we do an event like this. I also have to say, I think Brooke Bergen is still on. She's a great poet. And she sent me earlier today an essay that she wrote about cocktails and cocktailing. And so we've got a lot of ground to cover on this front at future parties. That and just the fact that Julia Borchards, probably the center of the literary universe and all good literary things that are happening in Chicago. She's known for having some swell parties from time to time. So anyway, we'll figure out another sort of event when we can all get together and imbibe together and enjoy and celebrate great literature. I want to thank everybody for coming tonight. This has been so much fun.
It's been a lot of fun.
And I also want to thank Ryan, not only for the years of fun at Band of Bohemia and also helping out tonight, but for leaving the bartending business. It's probably saved my liver. So thank you.
And our pocket.
Yes, and now that you're in financial advising, we'll become millionaires. So this is good. This is good. Just want to say a big thank you to everybody for coming tonight. I know that we're hitting 9 o'clock, so we're over. The party's lasted longer than we expected it to.
And everybody go to www.chicagoliteraryhof.org. We've got events coming up, really fun ones, and we've got announcements coming up. So just go to our website and follow us, and you can join the next thing. But, I really think Gimlet Sheltering is the sequel.
Very good.
It has a possibility.
If Randy signs off on it, we'll call it that.
Yeah. You already committed me to a big tip, Michael. Okay, I want to just say on behalf of the whole board, thank you so much for doing this. This is a fantastic night. So much fun. It's great to see Julia and Darwin and Patty and Philip and all these people I know, as well as you. I'm glad all that writing training, paid off. Charles Bukowski, drinking is another way of thinking, another way of living. It gives you two lives instead of one. We've had tonight.
And I've got to say,
Ryan, thank you so much. And thanks to all the performers. Fantastic.
and I've got to say, when the pandemic passes and we can have, real live get-togethers again, Anne Marie's on the top of my list. She's coming with her guitar, I hope. Anne Marie, you in?
Absolutely.
That's great.
Anne Marie, I was thinking about the first time I heard Joan Baez this morning, and then it made me think about when you were singing. I thought about that.
Oh, thank you. I love Joan Baez. Thanks.
Well,
Sandra.
yeah, so you brought back that memory. Thank you for that.
It was so wonderful.
Thank you for making my life.
It was so wonderful to hear Cyrus Coulter's work too. I brought him as a visiting writer at Columbia, and he was just the most wonderful, gentle, fantastic writer in person. It was just so wonderful to hear his words again. Thank you for doing that.
My pleasure.
Sandra, is your
Nice to meet you,
most
Don.
recent? Oh, I'm sorry. I'll be quiet.
Nice to lay eyes on you, Don, after speaking to you on the phone.
Yeah, you'll have to make those drinks some other time, but
You know what I did while the actual making was going on? I created a plate of tapas and I took a picture of it. I haven't eaten any yet, but when we're all done, I'm going to send a picture of it to everyone. So while you were actually following the directions, I was just, using the lovely and leftover ingredients in my fridge. I call it an ice box still. And so I offer that to you. I will send you all the picture of it.
thank you.
Maggie, we're coming to your house for dinner.
Yeah.
For the
I do love
record,
to cook.
Just
For the
leave it
rec-
on the front porch. It's
for the record, I offered free booze and delivery to Peggy, and she
did.
turned me down.
Well, I said COVID, if not for COVID. He was very generous with his offer.
Free booze, free delivery, and Peggy calls me to say, well, it's a
COVID, I
you were
said
under
COVID.
consideration, but you didn't make the cut.
You were very generous, Don, very generous.
Public health first. Well, thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Good night, thank you
Good
so
night.
much.
Thank you.
Hi,
Hello.
Good night,
Bye.
everybody. Thanks for coming.
Sandra. It was really lovely to get to
Great.
meet you in person.
I'm sorry. Great to meet you.
Bye, everybody.
Yeah.
Bye.
I'm an
Thank you,
admirer
everybody.
of your work.
Yeah.
Bye.
Great to